What if I could offer you a tool that could improve your social life, make you more popular at work, make you more attractive to the opposite sex, and under the right circumstances, even make you the most powerful man in the world? Sound good? Stay tuned. In fact, at the end of this video, you will have the power to answer the most difficult question in all of human history. Does my butt look big in these pants? All that and more. But first, a word from our sponsors. And we're back. So in today's episode of Defense Against the Dark Arts, I want to talk about a rhetorical technique that can have an amazing power to change your social interactions, and it's called Agree and Amplify. What is Agree and Amplify, and what are its origins? Well, it's murky and nobody really knows, but it's been an idea that's been heavily popularized lately by pickup artists. These pickup artists realized when they would go and they would try to meet and pick up women at the bar or whatever, that they would encounter a peculiar form of resistance. Now, they call it something else, but for our purposes, we'll just refer to it as a tension test. Men often would historically interpret this as the woman just being a B word, when really what she was doing was engaging with the encroaching male socially to see if he was as confident as he appeared to be on his approach. Women like to test men, and they never stop. My grandparents were married for 60-some years, and I'd have lunch with them sometimes, and my grandma would endlessly tension test my grandfather, and my grandfather would endlessly beat those tension tests. And I never really knew what was happening as a kid growing up, other than it was hysterical to watch. So let's kind of get in the nuts and bolts of this technique. Now, there's two kinds of people. There are people that are dialectic thinkers, and there are people that are rhetorical thinkers. So a dialectic thinker is probably someone that's subscribed to this channel. You're logical, you're reasonable, you're interested in truth. You think step by step by step through your premises and reach a rational conclusion. The problem is a lot of the world is not, they're not rational. They're not reasonable. They think rhetorically. And it's basically, it boils down to facts versus feelings. People will come up with a slogan like, yes, we can. And everyone's like, a black guy saying, yes, we can? I feel great. I'm going to go vote for that. And it works. And people, that's kind of your general rhetorical thinker. They're moved emotionally. They're convinced through their feelings. And that's what they call thinking. They actually think their emotions is what thinking is. And that's why there's such a divide between, people that are smart and people that aren't. They actually can't communicate with each other. So this tool is a way to bridge the gap between dialectic thinkers and rhetorical thinkers. Or if you are a rhetorical thinker that has had some moments of clarity and come to the correct conclusions, you're probably going to be even better using this tool. So this is defensive rhetoric. It can't be used as an attack. It can only be used protectively. It can be used to reflect the power of a verbal assault. And don't take these things personally. Actually, once you begin to spot tension tests, you realize it's not just men and women interacting. They occur everywhere. As a man and even as a woman in a progressively more society we've got, you're going to encounter people pitching you crap. It's just a part of life. And what you need to learn to do is how to return the volley. But to return the volley in a socially literate, non-defensive seeming way. It's not done through a spite or a sense of retaliation or vengeance, however. This is going to be, it keeps the conversation going. And you get this back and forth game, and what will happen is you'll know you've passed a tension test correctly when people either 1, laugh, 2, nod their head approvingly, and you can feel your respect in the group go up, or women actually have a very primal response to this, and they'll actually become attracted to you, sometimes significantly so. It's a very powerful tool. The reason people give you tension tests is because people want to see how you can cope under pressure, and it's a measure of the man, so to speak. And you'll kind of know when you've been hit with a tension test because all eyes will kind of shift to you and you can feel the temperature of the room rising. Now, the first thing you don't get flustered, you don't get angry at the person. It's nonchalance. Nonchalance shows that you're confident, that it doesn't bother you. You certainly don't get defensive. You certainly don't start explaining and justifying. Never justify. Now, at times you can ignore or laugh off various tension tests, but there's another way of effectively dealing with it depending on the social situation, and it's this technique I've been talking about, agree and amplify. Whenever you're challenged, just think AA. AA, not for alcoholics, but for agree and amplify. AA. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Instead of arguing or trying to get defensive and explain yourself, you turn it into what it is. You recognize that it's a social challenge, not a dialectical challenge, and you agree, and then you amplify it to such an absurd degree it highlights how ridiculous what the other person just said actually is, and it's funny. It's a social manifestation of the reductio ad absurdum, or reduction to absurdity, or appeal to extremes. It's a form of argument that attempts to establish a claim by showing that the opposite scenario would lead to absurdity or contradiction. It can be used to disprove a statement by showing that it would inevitably lead to a ridiculous, absurd, or impractical conclusion, or to prove a statement by showing that if it were false, then the result would be absurd or impossible. So let's take a quick real-world example. It's January. Say you put on a few pounds around your waistline, and someone at the water cooler at work says, "Hey there, Bob. Looks like you put on a little weight." And maybe you did, maybe you didn't. It doesn't matter. There's your social tension. And so the wrong answer is, you could ask yourself is, what would Jeb Bush say? Well, it's not that much weight, or my doctor says my BMI is healthy, or I've got a gym membership, and you panic and you get defensive and you explain, and people just go, oh, he's fat, and he's self-conscious about it. Hey there, fatty. And they're just going to continue to pick away at it because you showed yourself to be a low-confidence man. They're not actually concerned whether you're fat or not. People are concerned about how you feel internally. Are you actually internally confident? So what's the agree and amplify? If somebody says, "Hey there, Bob, you look like you put on a few pounds over the holidays," proudly slap your belly and say, "All muscle." And that's funny, right? You answered it in a socially calibrated way. By saying, "All muscle," you are saying, yes, I am fat, and I'm completely comfortable with it. But you're not saying it in an autistic way. You are just demonstrating, yep, my weight doesn't bother me at all. Or you could answer it almost comically. You're like, they say, "Bob, you look like you gained some weight." You say, "Yep, I can finally wear all those clothes from my competitive eating days." That's it. Funny. People laugh, they like you, and they let it go. You might even notice a new sparkle in the secretary's eyes next time she's looking your way. You'll get a chuckle, you'll get a respectful nod, and your weight's probably not going to be a problem, or people will then begin riffing on the idea that you were once a competitive eater. And all of a sudden you're more likable. That story spreads around the workplace, and they think, Bob, he's a great guy. Hey, Bob, you want to come over for a barbecue? Hey, Bob, we want to put you on this project to fast track you to your next promotion. Like, this stuff has real power. Now, don't confuse social tension with actual, say, professional tension. If your boss calls you in and says, "Hey, Bob, your performance has been really under par. You've been missing a lot of time at work." "Yep, I totally hate this place, and I'm a degenerate alcoholic." And expect laughs or respect. Like, you have to be able to differentiate different sorts of social interaction. Professional life is very different than social life. And so you just have to have that social calibration. So the more you talk to people, the more you interact, the more you get out of your house, the better you will be at this. Start out by observing rather than trying to hit home runs or grand slams, and then just start with little singles. You don't have to swing for the fences with this for it to be effective. Intention tests come in different forms. Some of them are fastballs designed to blow you out of the water, and some of them are just kind of underhand lobs to just get conversation flowing. Like you might walk up to the water cooler and people are standing around, and one guy that's talking turns to you and said, "And here's the hardest worker in the whole office." Now, he's not trying to make you look bad. It's just an invitation to engage with the group. And so a simple agree and amplify would be something like, "Yep, I filed 4 pieces of paperwork this morning." Kind of just lets them know you're in on the joke, and then the conversation proceeds from there. An unlikable person would be like, "Oh, I know, and I've got this and this project, and I'm here on this meeting, and can you do this for me? And you guys have been standing here for half an hour," getting flustered and angry. Nobody will like you. Don't do that. So these are kind of the basics of the technique, and I want to show you someone who's a master class in the technique, and that's Donald Trump. He's one of the most socially literate people on the planet, and this is how he was able, this is where I believe he won the election in 2016, and it's the famous verbal jousting with Megyn Kelly on the way he had talked about women.
One of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account...
Thank you.
And there it is. Pitch perfect. Only Rosie O'Donnell. He agreed, but the agreement side is kind of implied, right? He could have said yes, but only Rosie O'Donnell. But he's so good, he just raises his finger. He even interrupts her, because we all know where this is going. This is a nasty, stinky, filthy snotball, the worst that the establishment had to hurl at him. And he stepped aside. He just blasted it out of the park with a simple agree and amplify. Textbook perfection. By agreeing and then amplifying to Rosie O'Donnell, who is gross and she's very unlikable, he made the whole crowd laugh. He won everybody over there. It's like, "Oh, you're an evil, hateful, spiteful dictator guy that is got all the negative qualities we don't want in society." And he goes, "No, I'm a funny, likable guy." The psychology changed. You can't argue with the psychology. Even though she's like, no, you didn't, and she tries to regain the frame, but he totally blew it out of the water. It was just an incredible example of how he was able to flip the script on these people. Now think about how Jeb Bush would respond, right? The ultimate loser is Jeb Bush. No one has more respect for women, and I resent that accusation. I love my wife, and I have a daughter or sister or something, and I love them, and their women are leaders too. He just would have been destroyed by it, because it looked like there was no way out, right? Like either you say, "Yep, I said those things and I'm a bad person," or you start apologizing, and so either way, you're guilty. You lose. It looked like there was no escape from the trap. But indeed there was. It was through agreeing and amplifying, showing the absurdity of what she was doing. He pulled back the curtain and was like, "Yeah, we all know this game, and let's all laugh at somebody that nobody likes." Worked perfectly. Let's look at another great Trumpian example, and this is, of course, when Hillary is saying, "I'm so glad that you're not in charge of the law and order in this country," implying that he was unhinged and mentally unstable and a tyrant dictator, right? And then he hit her with this.
Can fact check him in real time. Last time at the first debate, we had millions of people fact checking, so I expect we'll have millions more fact checking because, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton. We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
Oh, Anderson Cooper, he just starts falling apart. Oh, we don't have time for this. We don't have time. Don't shh. He knew that he just hit that out of the park, that Hillary just lost big. And all he said is, because you'd be in jail. I'm sure glad Donald Trump's not running this country because he would be out of control and he's dangerous. And he showed, no, I'm not dangerous. I get your little game. And he agreed. Yeah, I bet you're glad that I'm not running this country because I would lock you up because you're a criminal. Just demolished the mainstream narrative. And this technique blows through all the rhetorical black magic spells. And that's why it's so powerful. And that's why, a lot of you have probably heard of it, but it doesn't hurt to revisit these things because we're going deeper and deeper into crazy land. And it's getting harder and harder to expose the truth. And the people that just, you can't get through to them, it's because you're probably trying dialectic when you should be thinking and responding rhetorically. And agree and amplify is a very powerful technique to blow through those blinders that people have. Now, as an aside, agree and amplify is a technique that's heavily used and abused by comedians. And the fact that a lot of today's late night comedians aren't funny is because they keep trying to use the agree and amplify technique, but they don't have any truth on their side, so all they do is end up amplifying. So it's just pure absurdity. Think Stephen Colbert's injection dance. He's not revealing any truth. He's not agreeing and amplifying and showing absurdity. He himself is acting absurd. The leftist comedians themselves are becoming the joke. They are just being the clowns. But you'll see this. Watch, a good comedian will do it very well too. They will set up a situation and then they will amplify it to absurdity. Think about Dave Chappelle's, 2-year-old baby or whatever selling crack on the sidewalk in the middle of the night. Hey baby, be quiet, I'm trying to sleep. It amplifies a very sad situation in black neighborhoods that is very true. It's very young people selling drugs. But he makes it so absurd that we can at least all get a chuckle out of it. So the more you work with this, the more competent you will become. You'll learn to spot your hits, your misses. You'll learn to identify tension tests, and you'll watch people flail or you'll watch people succeed. So I want to give an example of something I used, and it's kind of a higher level use of this. I don't recommend it until you're very comfortable and confident in your abilities. But I was at work, so professional-esque environment, and 3 people were standing around. They were talking about, politics 2016. And it was a conservative white woman, older, a independent Asian guy that could care less about politics, and a very liberal, older black man. And I don't know what they were talking about. Well, they were talking about Trump being a racist and people supporting him are racists. And I was walking up, and they all stopped and looked at me, and the Asian guy, who's kind of a little instigator, said, well, Heavy Rain is a racist. And all 3 of them stopped and looked at me to see what my response was. And I've been well-versed in this technique, and I'm not bothered by this sorts of thing, and I tend to have my personality on here isn't fake. This is basically who I am. And so without breaking stride, I unflinchingly looked straight at them all and just said, yep. And you could feel the tension go up in the room because none of them were expecting that. They were expecting me to stop. They were expecting me to explain. They know me. They know that I don't care about what people look like. But it was such a surprise response. And it was just agree. And the amplification was implied like you didn't know I was going to do that. And I didn't stop. I didn't stop to explain, and I just walked right past them all. And then as that tension went up, it was actually the Asian guy that then had to break it. And he said, he only hates Asians. And everybody kind of laughed, and they were relieved. But I never said a word. Just pure nuclear. This is before people talked about, the Chad yes. It's basically that. Just, you're horrible, no good, blah, 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 yes. But don't try that until you're very comfortable in reading social cues. So at the beginning of this, I said I would give you an answer to the age-old question, does this make my butt look big? Now, this is a tension test that women give their husbands generally, or long-term relationships, and you got to be careful with it because it's not your run-of-the-mill tension test. Because she can say, does my butt look big in this? But she's saying two different things depending on the situation. And what you need to do as a man is you need to read the social cues. Stop for a second and ask yourself, is she feeling insecure or is she feeling confident? Because if she's feeling insecure, you need to comfort her and say, oh, sweetheart, you look so beautiful, I love you, right? So if you're going out on a double date and the other woman in the group is like stunningly attractive and she's maybe put on a little weight, comfort her. She needs that comfort. And so by comforting her, you reassure her in that relationship. But the thing is, those same words, does my butt look big in these, can be, ooh, I'm feeling sexy in these pants. I wonder if I'm too good for this guy. Like, I'm looking really good. If she's confident, those same words, does my butt look big in these, is a tension test, and you need to respond accordingly. Something like, oh my God, Kim Kardashian would be jealous. Or, hell yeah, it does. But you have to know the difference, and that's the trick, that's the barbed hook in that question, is you are constantly being tested on your social acumen. Because the wrong answer, if she's feeling insecure, like, hell yeah, your butt looks big, is going to make her cry. But if you say, darling, I love you and you're beautiful, when she's feeling overly confident, that's also the wrong answer, and it deflates the excitement of the situation. Where she's thinking, ooh, I look good, and you're getting all mushy and needy. So there you have it, the deepest question in all of human relationships explained, one of the most powerful rhetorical techniques that there is out there for dealing with tension. We're going to see a lot of it. There's a lot of craziness out there. Observe this, watch this, practice with it. It's a great technique. So when you're presented with social tension, remember AA, agree and amplify.